Hi guys, Adam here as per usual. How are we all doing? What I intend to be a quick video that usually ends up being a long video. Had a couple of questions recently about kind of the live rig, particularly the Strandberg Bowden OS 6 that I recently got, and the Quilter Overdrive 200 and how that's fitting into the live rig, etc. So I thought I'd do this kind of rig rundown slash rig assembly video at the same time. Hopefully this answers most of your questions. If not, you know where to post them. That's below, not at me page. So as you can see, this is kind of the setup corner of the room. Excuse me while I drink a lovely English tea at the same time out of a hedgehog cup. Adds to the taste. So this is the rig, sorry, for all kind of recordings and mainly for Armatura live on the road as well. Underneath the cover over there is the PV6505 Plus. I am toying with the idea of selling it because it's not going to be used anymore, and certainly not as much as I had planned on. So if you're interested, get in touch. I've got the Hughes & Kettner Trilogy there, but for the first time ever I'm considering gigging without taking the Trilogy, without taking a valve amp on the road. The Zilla 212 there with Warehouse Veteran 30s, that's the main cab. The 112 I just use kind of for practice in the house and for a little bit of a different sound, but it's just a cheap 112, although there is a Celestion V30 in there. So this is kind of the full sort of rig stuff here, so that's where 6 goes, obviously. Then I'm left with essentially just kind of three or four boxes of stuff, so there's actually not that much stuff. Paul, the other guitarist in the band, just rocks up with his cab and his Kemper. It sounds awesome, but you know I'm not like that. I like to have a select number of toys. So I'm just going to set up the rig kind of as it would be in the studio for when I'm playing at home, and this is kind of the rig that I carry about. Talk a little bit about this. I'm going to do plenty more demos of this as well. This is really cool. So the first thing I like to do, get a little bit of, push everything out of the way, a little bit of space here. Yeah, this was actually just a Harley Benton 112. That was less than 100 quid. Just be plywood stuff. But I put in there a Celestion V30. And you know what, it sounds quite good. I would love to get away with just using a 1x12 kind of live, but I really, you guys know that I've liked the sound of a 212, especially over a 412 for a long time. And that's kind of the sound that I'm used to hearing. Yep, so that's what we'll be going with. So I think what we'll do is we'll just do this video talking through a few pieces, and then I'll do a separate video kind of talking through the rig as it's complete. Oh, so we get the rack up there first. There's the back of the rack for all of you guys who like your kind of wiring porn, I guess. It's, considering the tight space that I'm working with, it's fairly neat, fairly organised. There's very limited noise. Quite happy with it, but I mean there is only a couple of pieces in the rig, to be fair. The great thing is you don't need to go around the back at all, other than for a bit of powering. Now I am considering putting all of this rig into rack format, including the pedal board, but it's out of budget at the minute and just a little unnecessary. Whereas the Overdrive 200, yeah, so the Quilter Overdrive 200 is awesome. It's like somewhere between, it's a solid state head. That just hit us right in the foot end of the box. It's a solid state head. It's really cool. I'll post a link to kind of the demo I've done of it, but you're going to hear a lot more of this amp certainly in my videos in the future. And they seem to be gaining quite a bit of popularity, the Quilter stuff as well. Got a flight case here of sorts that I use to carry all my cables about. So the first thing I'll do is plug in the speaker cable to the head. Cable that basically I made, that I soldered using this super thick Van Damme Blue Series studio grade cable. Nitric plugs. It's a speaker cable, you know what I mean. Get that plugged in there. Great, so that's that plugged in. Next thing to do, oh, this flight case that I've had for years and served me very, very well, from NSP cases. Sorry, I'm dealing in limited space here, guys. NSP cases that I've used for, God, I've had this a long time. This pedal board that's gotten through various kind of carnations. So again, I'd love to have a slightly smaller pedal board, because most of the action is happening in the rack, to be honest with you. So I'd love to have a slightly smaller pedal board, but at the minute, this is what we've got. There's not a great deal of pedals on there. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pedals and a tuner. There's a tuner, a wah, and four dirt pedals basically. We'll do that in the kind of talk through them in the sound video a bit more. There's a pedal board on the floor there. Let me angle the cam slightly further down and come back to you. There you go. So imagine instead of the 112, I just have it sat on the 212, exactly the same kind of setup. 4-way extension, nothing fancy, unfortunately. Maybe at some point I will. Plugs into the mains behind there. So we only need three things need powering basically. The head, the rack, which is kind of self-contained. Everything that needs powering in the rack is powered in the rack, and there's just a plug coming out. And the pedal board, of course, the GSC4. The GSC4, it's a little bit of a fiddly one, but I've learned to live with it and accept it. I've got this set up. I can get this set up and turned on and ready to rock in about 5 minutes now as well. So that's once it's in the building. Obviously getting the to and from the building is a little bit of a pain, but it all fits in my car, no problem. Excellent. Kettle lead plugs into that kind of transformer section. I do wish it had its own. It's the only thing about the GSC4 really, is I wish the transformer was inside the unit rather than one of those external lump inline things. Right. What I really like as well, I Quilter provide this cool kind of clip lock IEC cable. Here we go. There's a MIDI cable built into the rig for if I'm using the Trilogy, then I can control the Trilogy via MIDI. Unfortunately, I haven't got the right, so the Quilter isn't MIDI compatible, and I don't have you know, like an amp gizmo or something like that to transform MIDI signals into analog switching signals. Basically, there's a way I believe I can do it through the GSC4. I haven't really experimented too much with that yet, but that's going to be the next job, is to get the GSC4 also switching the Quilter. Right, get our 3 power plugs in there, ready to go. Coil this MIDI cable back up. Don't get me wrong guys, I still absolutely love the Hughes & Kettner Trilogy. You know that it's been my amp of choice for, my god, 12, 13 years maybe, something like that. But this is just so much more portable, and it sounds really good, man. So that should be all the power done, and also MIDI through. And this little gizmo here, which is basically a MIDI splitter. Let me know if anyone wants to see more details of the rack up close or anything like that, and I'll happily do that and talk you through kind of the wiring process. So I do have a full video series, where I talk through kind of designing what I call the ultimate guitar rig and putting it together, some tips on cabling, etc. But if anyone wants to see this rig specifically, let me know and I'll see what I can do. Next up, 2 cables, again just cables that are made, iron tone cables. Anyone wants them, give me a shout, I can make you some fairly quickly. It's cable, there's no snake oil, there's no magic. It's Amphenol connectors, Van Damme cable, and then this cool TechFlex kind of material. So these are the effects loop cables, so this is what connects the rack. So the rack is only in the effects loop now. So you may notice, if you can see down here, I have 4 ins and outs on the kind of patch bay for the rack. That is because I have the option to run some effects, excuse me, in front of the amp if I'd like to, but now most of the time, in fact pretty much all the time, I'm just doing just having it in the effects loop. It was more when I was running kind of that, remember that 2-channel EQ that I was running, one in front of the amp and one in the effects loop? It was great, but not without its problems, so, and I found that I can achieve most of the same effects doing this. So blue is for send, and red is for return. So once it's kind of wired up and stuff like this, it's not the neatest or the prettiest, but you know, it works. And then basically I've got one more cable, which is the cable that goes from the pedal board through into the amp. Patch bay here, right over, up and into the amp. Now as I said, I think I'm going to try the Quilter Live several times, get a good feel for it. The gigs are starting to ramp up with the band, which is awesome. So I'm going to try the Quilter Live. If I'm really liking the sound of it live as well. I've had it at practice, sounds awesome, sounds great in the house, in the studio. Try it live a few times, see what we think. And then what I might do is buy a slightly larger rack and build everything into the rack, so the amp would be also in the rack and everything can just be patch bayed on the front. Maybe have the amp in like a drawer or something, and I'll probably still take the pedal board for the time being, just because it's got the GSE4 switch and control unit on as well, so that's going to control all of this up here for me anyway, once I get it all good to go. But yeah, if I do decide to go the route of getting it all in a massive rack, I'll be sure to kind of document that process and give you guys some tips and stuff on the way as well. But that's it guys, so it just fits together like that, really simple. In the next video we'll do some kind of sounds and some tones and some demos, etc. But until then, any questions, keep them coming, and I'll see you next time. Oh, my knees. You know I've got bad knees, I'm stuck down here now.